What starts as a simple stop at a gas station quickly turns into a tense and unexpected confrontation. Jason Statham faces a moment where courage is the only option. Watch until the end to see how this real-life action unfolds. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. What would you have done in his place? Let us know in the comments. Jason Statham pulled into a small suburban gas station under the scorching midday sun. The place was quiet, the sound of cicadas blending with the occasional hum of cars passing by on the highway. He parked his sleek black car by the pump, stepping out with the intention of filling the tank and grabbing a cold bottle of water from the station's convenience store. The smell of gasoline mixed with the heat created a heavy atmosphere, but Jason barely noticed as he walked toward the entrance. As he approached the cashier, his attention was caught by loud, mocking laughter coming from the far end of the gas station. He turned his head, frowning slightly, and saw a group of 6 bikers surrounding a young black woman who worked as an attendant. She stood near one of the pumps, clutching the nozzle tightly, her face set in a mixture of fear and defiance. The bikers loomed around her, their leather jackets adorned with patches and chains clinking as they moved. Their voices carried easily through the still air. "Hey girl, you sure you know what you're doing with that pump? Or are you just holding it for show?" barked one of them, a burly man with a scruffy beard and a large chain hanging from his neck. The others laughed uproariously, encouraging his mockery. Another biker, a lean man with tattoos snaking up his arms, stepped closer to her. "Bet she doesn't even know how to turn it on. Must have begged for this job. They're probably just trying to hit some diversity quota." The woman's jaw tightened, but she stood her ground. "I'm just here to do my job. If you've got a problem, you can take it up with my manager." Her calm response only fueled their cruelty. "Oh, listen to that. She thinks she's so tough," sneered another biker with a scar running down his cheek. "Don't get too comfortable, sweetheart. Jobs like this don't last long for people like you." Jason watched from the store, his hand resting on the counter as he processed what was happening. He could see the tension in the woman's body as she tried to remain composed under their verbal assault. The cashier, a nervous teenager, glanced at him and mumbled, "They're always like this. Nobody wants to get involved." Jason ignored the comment, his gaze fixed on the scene outside. One of the bikers, grinning wickedly, suddenly reached out and grabbed the woman's arm. "Why don't you take a break and come for a ride with us, sweetheart? I'll show you how to have some real fun." The woman recoiled, yanking her arm free, and in a moment of desperation she swung the nozzle toward him, dousing him in gasoline. The biker stumbled back, cursing loudly, his laughter replaced by rage. "You little bitch!" he roared, wiping at his soaked jacket. "You're going to regret that." The others stopped laughing, their expressions hardening. The soaked biker turned to his companions, his voice dripping with venom. "Grab her. Show her what happens when she gets out of line." One of them snatched the nozzle from her hands and, with a cruel smirk, sprayed a stream of gasoline onto her uniform. "How do you like that, huh? Let's see how tough you are now." The young woman froze, fear flashing across her face. Another biker stepped forward, pulling a matchbook from his pocket. He struck a match and held it up, its tiny flame flickering in the sunlight. "You feeling brave now, little miss? One wrong move, and this whole place goes up." Jason's fist clenched at his side. The moment had gone from bad to worse, and he knew he couldn't stand by any longer. Tossing the change for his water onto the counter, he pushed the door open and stepped outside. His stride was deliberate, his eyes locked on the group as he closed the distance between them. "Hey!" Jason's voice cut through the tension like a blade. The bikers turned to look at him, momentarily startled by his presence. "What do you think you're doing?" The gasoline-soaked biker sneered, his bravado returning. "Who the hell are you supposed to be? Her knight in shining armor?" Jason stopped a few feet away, his gaze cold and unwavering. "You're crossing the line. Walk away now, and we can all forget this happened." The leader of the group, a massive man with a shaved head and tattoos covering his neck, stepped forward. "And if we don't, what are you going to do about it, tough guy?" Jason's expression didn't change. "You really want to find out?" The bikers exchanged glances, their laughter returning as they sized him up. One of them, emboldened by the numbers on their side, stepped forward, cracking his knuckles. "All right, hero, let's see what you've got." The woman looked at Jason, her fear now mixed with a glimmer of hope. Jason didn't move, his stance calm but ready. He knew the fight was coming, and he intended to end it quickly. The first biker lunged at Jason with a wild swing, his fist aiming straight for Jason's jaw. Jason sidestepped effortlessly, grabbing the man's wrist mid-swing and twisting it sharply. The biker let out a grunt of pain as Jason used his momentum to flip him onto the ground, where he landed with a heavy thud. The group erupted in curses, their laughter replaced by shouts of anger and surprise. Another biker, a wiry man with tattoos covering his arms, charged forward, brandishing a rusted chain. He swung it at Jason, who ducked just in time, the chain whistling through the air above him. Jason caught the chain on the second swing, yanked it out of the man's grip, and delivered a powerful kick to his chest, sending him sprawling into the side of a motorcycle. The leader of the group stood back, barking orders at the others. "What the hell are you doing? He's just one guy. Take him down." Two more bikers advanced together, one holding a wrench and the other clenching his fists. They moved cautiously now, aware that Jason wasn't an easy target. The man with the wrench swung first, but Jason blocked the blow with his forearm, then delivered a quick jab to the man's ribs, forcing him to drop the tool. Before the other man could react, Jason spun around and landed a swift elbow strike to his temple, knocking him to the ground. The crowd that had gathered near the convenience store gasped and murmured among themselves, some pulling out their phones to record the fight. The woman, still covered in gasoline, watched in stunned silence, her fear momentarily replaced by awe. The burly biker who had been doused with gasoline finally recovered and charged at Jason, his face twisted with rage. "You think you're some kind of hero?" he bellowed, throwing a heavy punch. Jason caught his fist and twisted it behind his back, forcing the man to his knees. "No," Jason said evenly, his voice low and cold. "I'm just someone who doesn't tolerate bullies." Jason shoved the man forward, causing him to stumble and fall. The leader, seeing his men defeated one by one, stepped forward, pulling a knife from his belt. "All right, tough guy," he growled. "Let's see how you handle this." The tension in the air thickened as the leader brandished the blade, his movements slow and deliberate. Jason's eyes narrowed as he adjusted his stance, ready for the next attack. The crowd fell silent, the only sound the faint hum of cicadas in the background. The leader lunged, aiming the knife at Jason's torso. Jason sidestepped and grabbed the man's wrist, twisting it until the knife clattered to the ground. He delivered a quick series of blows, a punch to the stomach, followed by a sharp uppercut that sent the leader stumbling backward. Before he could recover, Jason swept his legs out from under him, pinning him to the ground with his knee. Breathing heavily, the leader glared up at Jason, his defiance flickering. "You've got no idea who you're messing with," he spat. Jason leaned in closer, his voice calm but full of authority. "I don't care who you are. You mess with her again, you deal with me." Jason released him and stood up, his piercing gaze sweeping over the remaining bikers. "Take your friends and get out of here, now." The defeated bikers hesitated, their bravado shattered. One by one, they helped each other to their feet, muttering curses under their breath. The leader glared at Jason as he climbed onto his motorcycle. "This isn't over," he snarled before revving the engine and speeding off. The others followed, leaving the gas station in silence. Jason turned to the woman who was still standing frozen near the pump. "You okay?" he asked, his tone softening. She nodded slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you. I didn't know what to do." Jason pulled out a handkerchief and handed it to her. "You don't have to deal with people like that alone. They're cowards when someone stands up to them." The crowd began to disperse, some murmuring words of admiration for Jason's bravery. A few people approached him, thanking him and shaking his hand. One man with a phone still recording said, "This is going viral, man. People need to see what you just did." Jason nodded politely, but his focus remained on the woman. "Make sure you get yourself cleaned up," he said, gesturing to the gasoline on her clothes. "And don't let this stop you from doing your job." She managed a small smile, her confidence slowly returning. "I won't. Thanks to you." Jason gave her a reassuring nod before turning and walking back to his car. As he drove away, he glanced in the rearview mirror, watching as the gas station grew smaller in the distance. The fight might have been over, but the message was clear. No one deserved to be treated the way she had been, and he wasn't going to stand by and let it happen. The tension at the gas station had subsided, but Jason Statham remained on high alert as he drove away. His mind replayed the events, analyzing every move, every decision. He had handled the bikers efficiently, but he knew men like them rarely let things go. Their leader's parting words echoed in his mind, a reminder that trouble could resurface at any moment. Jason glanced in his rearview mirror, scanning for any sign of pursuit. The road behind him was empty, the gas station faded into the horizon, but his instincts told him this wasn't over. About 10 minutes into his drive, Jason noticed a group of motorcycles appearing in the distance. Their engines roared as they closed the gap, weaving in and out of traffic with reckless abandon. Jason tightened his grip on the steering wheel, his jaw clenching. It was them. The bikers had regrouped and were now following him, their intent unmistakable. The leader was at the front, his massive frame hunched over his bike as he signaled to the others. Jason observed their movements through his side mirrors, noting how they flanked him on both sides. They were trying to box him in. One of them pulled up alongside his car and smacked his fist against the window, shouting, "You think you can just walk away from this? We're not done yet." Jason kept his focus, his calm demeanor belying the storm brewing inside him. He assessed the situation quickly. The road ahead was clear, but he knew he couldn't risk innocent bystanders getting caught in the crossfire. He needed to handle this decisively and away from the public. The bikers began to escalate their tactics, swerving dangerously close to his car, revving their engines aggressively. Another biker threw an empty bottle at his windshield, the glass shattering on impact but causing no real damage. Jason's eyes flicked to a sign indicating an upcoming rest stop a few miles ahead. It was isolated and offered enough space to confront them without endangering others. He adjusted his speed, allowing the bikers to think they were cornering him. As he approached the rest stop, Jason signaled to exit, the bikers following closely behind. The parking lot was deserted, with only a few vending machines and a lone bench near the edge of a wooded area. Jason parked his car and stepped out, his movements deliberate and controlled. He stood tall, his piercing gaze fixed on the group as they dismounted their bikes, forming a semicircle around him. The leader stepped forward, his knife once again glinting in the sunlight. "You made a big mistake back there, hero," he growled. "You think you can humiliate us and just drive off like nothing happened?" Jason didn't respond immediately. He adjusted his stance, his hands relaxed at his sides, but ready to strike. His voice was calm, almost conversational. "You came looking for trouble. I just finished it. But if you're here to try again, I'm happy to remind you how that went." The leader sneered, motioning for the others to close in. "This time, it's different. There's no crowd to impress, no cameras to make you feel like a hero. It's just you and us." One of the bikers lunged first, swinging a metal pipe toward Jason's head. Jason ducked smoothly, stepping into the man's guard and delivering a powerful uppercut to his jaw. The biker crumpled to the ground, groaning in pain. Another came at him with a chain, whipping it toward his torso. Jason sidestepped, grabbed the chain, and yanked it hard, pulling the biker off balance before delivering a swift kick to his midsection. The rest of the group hesitated, their confidence shaken as Jason dismantled their attacks with precision. The leader barked at them, his voice laced with frustration. "What the hell are you waiting for? Get him!" They charged as a unit, attempting to overwhelm him with their numbers. Jason moved like a seasoned fighter, using their momentum against them. He swept one man's legs out from under him, then spun to block a punch from another, countering with a sharp elbow strike. Each move was fluid, calculated, and devastatingly effective. The leader finally joined the fray, his knife slashing through the air. Jason dodged the blade, narrowly avoiding its edge, and countered with a quick jab to the man's wrist, forcing him to drop the weapon. Seizing the opportunity, Jason grabbed the leader by his jacket and threw him against the side of a vending machine. The impact rattled the glass, and the man slid to the ground, dazed. The remaining bikers, seeing their leader defeated, began to retreat. They pulled their injured comrades onto their bikes, their earlier bravado replaced with fear and humiliation. Jason stood in the center of the lot, his chest rising and falling steadily as he watched them leave. The leader, clutching his ribs, glared at Jason one last time before revving his engine and disappearing down the road with the others. The silence that followed was almost jarring. Jason rolled his shoulders, exhaling deeply as the adrenaline began to subside. He walked back to his car, glancing around to ensure no one else was in danger. The rest stop was empty again, the only sounds coming from the rustling trees and the faint hum of the vending machine. Jason climbed into his car and started the engine, his expression thoughtful as he drove back onto the highway. He knew this encounter would likely be the last. The bikers had learned their lesson the hard way, and they wouldn't forget it anytime soon. But as he merged back into the flow of traffic, Jason couldn't help but reflect on how close things had come to spiraling out of control. This was the kind of world he knew too well, a world where strength and resolve were often the only things standing between justice and chaos. For Jason, it wasn't about being a hero. It was about doing what was right, no matter the cost. Jason Statham drove down the quiet stretch of highway, his grip firm on the steering wheel as he processed the fight that had just taken place. He had dealt with the bikers decisively, but he couldn't shake the thought of how far they had been willing to go to defend their bruised egos. The image of the young woman's terrified face as they had doused her with gasoline stayed with him, a reminder of the cruelty people could inflict when left unchecked. As the miles rolled by, Jason noticed flashing blue and red lights in his rearview mirror. A police cruiser was closing in on him, signaling for him to pull over. Jason frowned but complied, steering his car to the side of the road and shutting off the engine. The officer approached cautiously, his hand resting on the holster at his side. "Afternoon," the officer said, his tone professional but wary. "Mind stepping out of the vehicle for a moment?" Jason exited the car, his movements calm and measured. "Something wrong, officer?" "We received a call about a disturbance at a rest stop a few miles back," the officer replied, studying Jason's face for any signs of aggression. "Several individuals reported a fight involving a group of bikers and a man matching your description. Care to explain?" Jason nodded, his expression neutral. "There was an incident. The bikers were harassing a young woman at a gas station earlier. They followed me afterward and tried to escalate things. I handled it, but they won't be bothering anyone else." The officer raised an eyebrow. "Handled it? From what I heard, it sounds like you left a few of them needing medical attention." Jason's jaw tightened, but his voice remained calm. "They were armed and outnumbered me. I did what I had to do to protect myself." The officer held his gaze for a moment before nodding. "Fair enough. We've had complaints about that group causing trouble in the area before. Let me run your ID, and if everything checks out, you'll be free to go." Jason handed over his license without argument, leaning against the car as the officer returned to his cruiser. A few minutes later, the officer returned, his demeanor noticeably more relaxed. "Looks like everything's in order. You're free to go, but if you see them again, call us instead of handling it yourself." Jason gave a small nod. "I'll keep that in mind." As the officer drove away, Jason climbed back into his car, glancing at his phone. A text notification from an unknown number appeared on the screen, sent by the gas station manager. It was a brief message thanking him for stepping in to protect the young woman and letting him know that the police had visited the station and taken statements from witnesses. Feeling a sense of closure, Jason continued driving, eventually pulling into a small diner on the outskirts of town. He needed a moment to unwind, to shake off the lingering tension. The smell of coffee and grilled food greeted him as he stepped inside, and he took a seat in a booth near the window. The waitress, a kind-looking woman in her 50s, approached with a smile. "What can I get you?" she asked. "Just coffee," Jason replied, his tone polite but distant. As he sipped his coffee, Jason noticed a young couple sitting at a nearby table, their faces lit up by their phones. They were watching a video, and the familiar sound of motorcycles caught his attention. Glancing over, he realized it was a recording of the fight at the gas station. The couple was laughing and whispering to each other, clearly impressed by what they were seeing. "Is that the guy?" the man asked, nudging his partner and pointing subtly in Jason's direction. "It looks just like him." Jason met their eyes briefly, offering a faint smile before returning to his coffee. The couple didn't approach, but their excitement was evident. He couldn't help but wonder how many people had already seen the video, how far it had spread. The thought of his actions becoming a public spectacle made him uneasy. He hadn't intervened for fame or recognition. He had done it because it was the right thing to do. Finishing his coffee, Jason left some cash on the table and exited the diner. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the parking lot as he returned to his car. He stood for a moment, gazing out at the horizon, his thoughts heavy but focused. He had no regrets about what he had done, but he knew the world was full of people who needed someone to stand up for them. As he started the engine and pulled back onto the road, Jason resolved to stay vigilant. He might not have sought out this fight, but he wouldn't shy away from others if they came. For now, though, he drove on, the hum of the engine a steady companion as the miles stretched out before him. The next morning, Jason Statham woke early, the events of the previous day still fresh in his mind. He sat in his hotel room, sipping a cup of coffee and scrolling through his phone. Notifications from various news outlets and social media platforms flooded his screen, all highlighting the same story: his confrontation with the bikers at the gas station. Videos captured by onlookers had gone viral, showing him taking on the group with calculated precision. The captions varied, ranging from real-life action hero to Jason Statham delivers justice. While some praised his bravery, others questioned the necessity of violence, debating the morality of his actions. Jason set his phone down, exhaling deeply. He hadn't stepped in to become a trending topic or to prove anything to anyone. His goal had been simple: to protect someone who needed help. Still, he couldn't deny that the attention might have broader consequences, for better or worse. As he prepared to leave, his phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. He hesitated for a moment before answering. A calm, professional voice greeted him. "Mr. Statham, this is Officer Richards from the local police department. I wanted to thank you personally for what you did at the gas station. We've been trying to deal with that biker gang for months, but their intimidation tactics make it hard for people to come forward." Jason's tone was measured. "I didn't do it for recognition. I did it because no one else stepped in." "That's exactly why we wanted to reach out," the officer replied. "Your actions inspired several witnesses to file formal complaints against the bikers. With the evidence we've collected, including the video footage, we finally have grounds to press charges against them. They won't be causing trouble around here anymore." Jason felt a small wave of relief but kept his response simple. "Glad to hear it." The officer continued. "The young woman you defended also asked us to thank you. She wanted you to know that she plans to keep working at the gas station and won't let what happened scare her off." Jason allowed himself a faint smile. "She's tougher than she thinks." After ending the call, Jason checked out of the hotel and began his drive back toward the highway. The town was waking up, its streets bustling with morning commuters and small businesses opening their doors. As he passed the gas station, he noticed the young woman standing by the pumps, her uniform clean and her posture confident. She spotted his car and gave him a small wave, a gesture of gratitude and solidarity. Jason returned the wave, his face softening as he drove on. The highway stretched out before him, and Jason allowed his thoughts to wander. The world was full of people who used fear and power to control others, but it was also full of those who resisted, who stood up when it mattered most. He couldn't fight every battle, but he could make a difference where it counted. Later that afternoon, Jason stopped at another diner to grab a meal before continuing his journey. As he sat at the counter, the waitress recognized him almost immediately. "You're the guy from the video, aren't you?" she asked, her eyes wide with excitement. "The one who stood up to those bikers?" Jason shrugged, offering a modest smile. "Just in the right place at the right time." "You're a hero," she said firmly, pouring him a cup of coffee. "We need more people like you." Jason didn't argue, though the word hero still felt heavy. He thanked her and ate his meal in peace, listening to the low hum of conversations around him. People were talking about the video, speculating about who he was and what had driven him to intervene. He overheard one man say, "It's about time someone put those guys in their place." As Jason left the diner, he noticed a group of teenagers near the parking lot, watching him with wide eyes. One of them approached hesitantly. "Mr. Statham," the boy stammered, holding up his phone, "can I get a picture with you? My friends and I saw what you did, and it was awesome." Jason hesitated for a moment before nodding. "All right, just one." The boy grinned and quickly snapped a photo, thanking Jason profusely before running back to his friends. Jason watched them go, their excitement reminding him of the responsibility that came with his actions. It wasn't just about stopping bad people. It was about setting an example, showing others that standing up for what's right wasn't just something you saw in movies. As the sun began to set, Jason got back on the road, the weight of the day lifting with each mile. He didn't know what awaited him on the next stretch of highway, but he knew one thing for sure. If the world needed someone to step in and make a difference, he would be ready. His journey wasn't about fame or recognition. It was about doing the right thing, no matter the cost. And for Jason Statham, that was a road worth traveling. And that's how one act of courage can make a difference. What do you think about Jason Statham's actions? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories. See you in the next one.